Hello and welcome to the Avid Carp channel. My name is Simon Crowe and today I'm going to talk to you about a carp called Macca, which I was fortunate enough to catch quite recently, weighing in at 41 pounds. Now this particular carp, it gets its name from the legendary and very lovable Iain Macmillan, who sadly passed away in 2021. He was much loved in the carp fishing industry, a good mate of mine, and I think I was one of the last people to fish with him. So this is a nice little tribute to him, and I know full well if he was looking down on me now, he'd be saying, "Good on you, Crowy, for talking about me today." So let's get stuck into things. Now, I caught this particular fish from Lincolnshire Syndicate water. This particular venue I've covered quite a few times on my own YouTube channel and also here on the Avid Carp channel a few times as well. I've fished it now for a couple of years, and it's a 30-acre gravel pit on the outskirts of Lincoln, and it's a lovely syndicate water with a lot of big fish in it. Now this particular water, it does get quite busy from time to time because of the stock that's in there. There's a lot of big fish in there, certainly a lot of 40-pounders in there, a lot of 30-pounders as well. So for that area of England, it's a very, very good big fish water. And with there being such a good stock of fish, there's always a good turnaround of anglers on there. So it does get quite busy, so the fish get very spotty. By that I mean that they'll pick up only baits from one area of the lake and not others. And that does change from time to time depending on the pressure and depending on how many fish are getting caught as well. But this year what we've also noticed is that the lake is getting very baity, in that the fish will only pick up certain kinds of baits. Now I'm fortunate I've been using the bug on there quite a lot, which is from DNA Baits, and this particular bait, it's got a decent track record on the venue. So that's the bait that I've been using on there, and it started quite well for me in the spring. I started catching decent fish straight away. I caught a fish called Peanut, which is one of the 40-pounders in there. It was slightly down in weight when I caught it, and on my next trip down I was fortunate to catch one of my target fish from the lake, an absolutely stunning 40-pound 10-ounce linear, big scales across its flanks, absolutely breathtaking fish. I'd seen well-known bluebell angler Gary Dennis catch that one last year, and I thought, yeah, I really would like to get that one in my album. So when I saw it roll into my net, I was absolutely bowled over. It came during really blustery conditions, a lovely low pressure storm, and during a 24-hour period I managed to catch myself 5 lovely carp and lose one as well. So timed it right on that occasion. I covered the capture of that fish in my most recent vlog, which was covered on my YouTube channel in mid-April, I think it was released. So that brings us right up to date with regards to the capture of Macca, because it happened on my next session down. And when I arrived to the lake, it was quite busy. Not a great deal was getting caught. There'd been 1 or 2 fish caught from an area called the Shallows, which is the best area on the lake at this time of the year. It's the area where the fish go into spawn. And the weather had been quite warm. There'd been temperatures about 22, 23 degrees, so the fish were kind of stacking up in that area. You can get to that area from the shallow swim and also a swim that's known as Last Stop, but both those swims was already taken, and it's fair to say there was quite a lot of people down, because at that time of the year on the lake it does get quite busy because there's always a lot of big fish that's due out. When I got to Rat Point, I stood in there looking out in front of the water for about 5 or 10 minutes or so. Didn't see any carp jump, but I did see some carp, which I believe were just below the surface in the bay to the left. And they were just swimming and cruising below the surface. And there was a little bit of a ripple on the lake at that time. But with the lake being quite busy, it kind of made me mind up, because for me, that particular swim has been quite good to me. I've caught quite a few decent fish in there. I made my way to the car park, got my car, got myself unloaded, and got all the gear into the swim, and looked out in front of the swim and started seeing 1 or 2 more carp showing. I wasn't going to put the rods out straight away. I was going to stand back, have a little watch, see what I could see, try and build up a picture in my mind as to what was happening in the swim. And with that, I decided I was going to set the camp up, and it's a lovely swim to fish, this one is, because there's a lot of tree canopy above. You can set the bivvy right back, have a good view of the swim as well, looking straight out in front. So it was late in the afternoon now. I'd not had anything to eat for quite a while, so I got myself a sandwich, got myself a brew, and just sat there looking out in front, trying to build up a picture as to what's going on in front of the swim. And it didn't take me long to decide that I'd made the right choice, because there was a lot of fish in front of me. They weren't jumping, but they were just cruising below the surface. Now once that ripple died down, you could see to the left in the bay there was actually quite a lot of fish in there. They were resting just below the surface, kind of hidden from view, and there's a ripple on there, but when the ripple died down you could see these shapes just cruising around below the surface, and the sun was beating down into that corner, so it was nice and warm. It was the perfect area for them to escape anglers, because nobody had been in that swim for a few days now. So they've kind of gone there because of the pressure, because there was a lot of pressure at the other end of the lake. A lot of people had been fishing to them over there. A lot of people had been casting to them. It's in the lines, and this area was kind of quiet from lines. Once I'd finished my sandwich and my brew, I made my way to the water's edge and just stood there for about 10 or 15 minutes, kind of looking at these fish, watching what they were doing, and they were literally just cruising around on the surface in the bay to the left. Now this particular swim, although I've caught quite a few fish out of there, I tend to catch them from the right hand side rather than the left hand side. For some reason I've never had a bite off that left hand margin that's in the bay to the left, but that is the area that they do tend to hang around. Now out in front it is quite a deep area. It does drop down to about 14-15 foot in places, and it kind of gradually shelves up to the marginal slope to the left in the bay. Now you often do see carp cruising around that marginal shelf to the left. They do get in the bushes along that margin as well. There's a couple of fallen trees down there, but getting a bite off there is quite difficult. It's something I've never achieved so far. I tend to get my bites to the right hand side where there's a few drop-offs, a few weed beds as well. And what you've got round to the right is an area known as the bay, and the fish are known for going in and out of that bay on a regular basis. And then just as I was contemplating what to do with the rods, a fish broke surface on the right hand side in an area that's known as the mouth of the bay, and it came clean out just to the right hand side about 30 yards out in front of me, and it looked a really good fish as well. I guess I'd have said it was one of the 40 pounders because it was a really big bulky fish that just kind of flopped out. And with that I went and got my rods, got them rigged up nice and quickly. They're already set up from my previous session. Just put some fresh baits on, and I lobbed the first rod out directly on top of where that fish had shown. I'd already marked the spot, and I just put a 1.5 ounce lead on, something nice and light. I didn't want to spook it because it'd already shown itself, and I knew it was quite a shallow area, that spot, about 7 foot, which was surrounded by some deep areas. And I just lobbed the rod out, and it landed roughly right on top of where the fish had shown. So I clipped that rod up, put it into the rod rest, sat back, got my second rod ready, and I was just contemplating putting that one out when another fish broke surface in roughly the same area. So I've got a photographic memory when it comes to fish. For many years I worked at Carp Talk magazine, which was the weekly magazine for carp fishing, and during those 24 years I saw an awful lot of pictures of carp. So it's something you get very tuned into is the body shape of carp, the characteristics of carp, what they look like, and I'm fairly sure, 99.9% sure, that the fish that I'd just seen was exactly the same fish that I'd seen the first one show. And it came up straight on top of where I'd put that first hook bait. So I was brimming with confidence at this point. It looked an absolute unit of a fish. Nice big scales on its flanks, real big belly, certainly around that 40-pound mark, which was definitely mouth-watering. So with that, I was brimming with confidence. So it's now a case of getting my second rod sorted, getting that one all rigged up and ready to go. Having fished the swim quite a bit, I know that the carp do come in very close, especially to the left-hand margin, where what you've got is a nice set of reeds with about 5-6 foot of water just on the edge of the reeds, and then it slowly drops off. And with it being nice and warm today, and having seen quite a few carp in the upper layers, I thought, yeah, the perfect spot to put my left-hand rod is just on the edge of the reeds, because just in front of there, you often see the fish cruising along that margin as they go round to the right, where you've got a swim called Mouth of the Bay, which is quite shallow around the left-hand margin. And then what you've got next one along is an area called the Bay, where the fish do go in quite a lot, especially when the lake's pressured and it's quite warm as it was today. And I'd already seen quite a few fish cruising along that margin, so that's what I decided to do, is just fish just in front of the reeds, just scattered again around half a dozen so free offerings around that rod, and I sat back with just 2 rods out. So I could have put a third rod out, but I decided to hold back on that one for the time being because there was a lot of fish in the swim and I didn't want to do too much casting around, and I wasn't too sure about where I was going to put that third rod. There was fish in the area, there was fish over both of my spots, and I knew I had a good chance of catching fish. So instead what I decided to do was get myself a little bit more organised with my setup, because I had 3 days ahead of me. The bivvy was half set up, all of my gear was thrown all over the place as I rushed to get the rods out. I decided to sit back and just let things happen as I organised myself and got things a little bit more tidier. So I made myself another brew and sat back and just watched the water a little bit. And then right out of the blue, about an hour after casting the first rod out, the right hand rod was away with a real bitty take, and I just put the cup of tea down, got myself into my chest waders, ran to the rod, and I hit into a really heavy fish, which I knew straight away was a decent fish just from the way that it was fighting. It held the bottom really well, it plodded along really slowly, and watching it roll on the surface a few times in front of the net, I knew exactly what kind of fish it was. It was one of the 40 pounders. So I'll leave you for a short while as you take a look at some of this head cam footage of the fight now. Something I didn't know until I turned round was that one of the other members, Stephen Amer, was watching from behind. He just turned up to have a look around the lake. He'd seen me playing a fish, and as soon as I got the fish in the net, I was fortunate to get another member turn up as well. John Dent was just on his way out the gate and he couldn't get past the trap because Stephen's car was there. So he got out of the car and saw me with the fish in the net. Now John's caught an awful lot of big fish, including about 10 50-pounders from England. So as soon as he saw it, he knew straight away it was a 40-pounder. I kind of knew in the back of my mind anyway what kind of fish it was, and it didn't surprise me that when we put it on the scales, it weighed in at 42.5 pounds. So here it is on the mat, an absolutely beautiful fish and a great way to start the session. Right, just had a mental fight. Fish picked up the rod, only a couple of rod lengths out. Bait is just a couple of rod lengths off the rod tip, really close in, and just absolutely roared off. Caught me right off guard. I'd actually just turned the bite cam off and just had a right run around with this one. 42.5 pounds. Mega fish. What a mega fish that is. Still got a couple of nights left as well, so you could say that the lake is fishing well at the minute. There you
go. No, I mean for its actual...
It's a great fish.
It's a chunky fish.
There's the other side of it. Awesome, thanks to Steve and John for the help. They turned up just at the right time. Lovely fish. Let's get some photos done. Thanks, boys. Thanks for your help. Come on, you. With the chaos of that fish, what I decided to do was get the marker float rod out and get myself all set for the night ahead, because it's quite late in the afternoon now, and what I wanted to be doing is going into the evening with all three rods set on decent spots. So I got the marker rod out, found myself some decent areas to fish to, and got three rods out nice and comfortably. And once I got those three rods out, I could sit back and relax and just enjoy the session, because it was an absolutely lovely view just looking out in front of that swim with three rods out, knowing I got a chance of catching some wonderful carp from one of the best carp lakes in the north of England. So this is what I was looking at on that first evening. We had a lovely day forecast for the next day, and in fact for the next 2 or 3 days in front of me. So there was a chance if I was going to stay in that area I was going to get some glorious sunsets, and it really is a lovely place to fish, this one. There's definitely a lot more to fishing than just catching fish, because this particular water, it's got a great stock of fish. There's a great bunch of members on there, and you also get views like this. What a wonderful evening it was, just sat there watching the sun go down, knowing there's some big fish in front of me. And that particular evening I did see a couple of fish in front of me, not too far away from spots, so I was quite confident going into the night, and I have caught quite a few fish out this swim during the night, but on this occasion nothing happened during the hours of darkness. I had a lovely night's sleep. I was up at first light just watching the water, seeing if I could see any more signs. And one of the things that I do, probably to my own detriment, is sometimes I can move a little bit too much, especially on this lake. I do have a habit of moving around too much and trying to follow the fish, but when I got up at first light and I saw some fish in front of me, I knew I was going to stay in there for another 24 hours, because there was definitely a chance of me catching something else. And the fish that I'd seen at first light were decent fish as well, so there was a good chance of me catching something half decent in that swim if I stayed put. So that's what I did. I stayed in there for the duration of the morning. I didn't redo the rods, didn't recast them, just left them where they were. And then it must have been about midday when I was looking at the water, just watching for signs of fish, when this huge fish just came clean out, and my memory now, I can see it just mid-air, this fish. I could count all the scales along its flank. It was a really short fish, really thick-set body, and easily one of the 40-pounders in the lake, and it kind of freeze-framed itself there and then just flopped back down, and my eyes just went, wow, what a fish. That was absolutely massive. And just to the left of where my rods were, there was a single reed stem, and it was probably about a rod length just either side of there, probably in about 4 or 5 foot of water. So I silently crept to the edge of the water really excitedly and reeled in the rod that I didn't quite fancy the most, and that was my left-hand rod that was just to the left in the bay. And I gently reeled the rod in, changed the lead over from a 3.5 ounce lead to a 1.5 ounce lead, and I just flopped it straight on top of where the fish was. And it went down with this lovely donk. And then I put the rod on the rest, put the bobbin on, turned the buzzer on, and then silently crept out the water and sat in the bivvy on my hands, just waiting for it to go. I kind of just knew something was going to happen because I did it all absolutely perfectly. You know, sometimes when things go wrong, you could tell, oh, I've probably wrecked things, but I knew what I'd done was absolutely spot on. And then it must have been about 15, 20 minutes, no more than 25 minutes, I wasn't clock watching, when the left-hand rod, there was no warning bleep whatsoever, it just absolutely melted off. It was just a beep, and I was frantically trying to get into my chest waders that was just in front of me, and I got into them, and it hadn't stopped by the time I got to the rod, but as soon as I hit into it, it just felt like a dead weight. It was like a sack of spuds. I just knew straight away which fish it was. It was the one that I'd seen, and it felt absolutely massive. And from then onwards, the battle was like I was attached to the biggest carp in the lake, because it did not give an inch. It did not take much line, it just plodded, just held its position. And a few times I thought it was snagged along the way because it just wasn't moving, it was just sat there. And eventually it slowly, bit by bit, made its way towards me. But luckily enough, I had the head cam just by the rod, so I put it on my head, turned it on, and you can watch the battle unfold now. This feels all right. Don't feel small. Only just recast it. Saw a fish show and then just lobbed a single on it and put a pouch full of freebies in the area. Phone's ringing at the minute, so whoever you are, go away, because this feels alright. Definitely feels alright, this does. Really slow. This is a good fish, this is. I can tell it is. This feels alright. Definitely feels alright. Come on. Got some warmth in that sun. Come on, look at those big boils. This is a lump, this is. slow fight. Haven't seen it yet. This definitely feels alright. So many good fish in here though. 30s, upper 20s, 40s. This is a real slow, dogged one though, this is. Yeah, this is a unit, this. That's not small, that isn't, bro. That's all right, that is, bro. That'll definitely do. When I saw the fish in the net, I knew straight away it was a 40-pounder because it was so thick set and really deep, and I actually thought it was a lot bigger than what it was because it turned the scales to 41 pounds. And when I looked at it in the net, I probably thought it was close to 45 because it was that big a fish. But anyway, I didn't know what fish it was, I didn't recognise it. I weighed in at 41 pounds, took the photographs, then downloaded the photographs and checked them against the fisheries list of big fish, and surprisingly it wasn't there on the list of 40-pounders. It went down to about 38 pounds when I eventually found it. I think it had topped out at £38.10, which is absolutely fantastic. Another 40 for an amazing lake. This is a mega fish. Really big chunk of carp. 41 pounds. Look at the size of it. Just excuse that plane going over at the moment. There you go, look at that one. What a fish. What a fight as well. I knew straight away that it was a big fish just from the plodding nature of the fight, but awesome. Only just got the rods out as well, just saw this fish top, put a single hook bait on it. About 10 freebies, and away you go, 41 pounds, what a great start. Show you the other side. It's not that long, it's just very wide across its shoulders and very deep as well. What a mega fish. That is a really, really nice fish. And a brilliant way to start my second spring video on the lake. But the little twist comes when I actually put the pictures on social media and said I just caught this lovely 41-pounder. It's the first time it's gone over 40 from the lake. And I got a message back from my old mate Lewis Porter, who said, is this the same fish? And he sent me these pictures of this carp at 30 pounds when he caught it about 4 years before. And I checked the pictures, and sure enough, it was exactly the same fish that Lewis had caught when the fish weighed just over 30 pounds. And he said to me, there's a nice little story about this one because he named it Macca, and he named it Macca because he caught it around the time that the late great Iain Macmillan passed away. And it actually felt quite emotional when Lewis had messaged me this because I was one of the last people to fish with Iain before he sadly passed away in 2021, and he was a really good friend of both myself and Lewis. It's a really nice tribute to know that there's a carp out there that's named after him. And I've no doubt, knowing what he used to be like, if he was watching this now, he'd be saying something along the lines of, Crowy, make sure you handled me properly, make sure you caressed me in the right way. He had such a great sense of humour, he was always cracking jokes, always smiling, and I know full well that he'd been really proud to know that such a lovely carp was named after him. Well, that's it for this month's vlog. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me talk about this wonderful carp in great memory of a great friend of all of ours. And if you have, then please like this video and don't forget to subscribe to the Avid Carp channel for future films, and I'll no doubt see you again real soon.